Hello everyone, welcome to Thinking Brain YouTube channel. Myself Shubham, and in this session we are going to study about Electoral Bond Scheme. So starting off, India, as you all know, is a democratic country. The most important feature of democratic country is regular elections. So in order to contest elections, political parties need funding. So from where does this funding comes? What are the sources for political parties to get money so that they could campaign into the election time? That is what we are going to study. So in the year 2017, the current NDA government, it had brought one law known as Electoral Bond Scheme. What were the provisions of this scheme? Why it is said that this particular electoral bond scheme has turned to be a draconian for the Indian democracy. That is all we are going to study. So we are going to see this particular topic in various parts. This will be the first part in this series. In this series, we are going to see how this law has made various changes with respect to earlier laws. So earlier there were certain limitations on the corporate firms that they could invest only 7.5% of their profit, 7.5% of profit to the political parties. Now, after this electoral bond scheme coming into existence, there was no barring on the corporates to give fundings. That means even if they were having profit of 100 rupees, they could give that all 100 rupees as funds to the political parties. Secondly, the revenue. In terms of revenue, it was earlier that only 10% of the revenue could be given as funding to political parties. But this electoral bond scheme, it had made provisions that all of the revenue could be given as the funding to political parties. So there was no barring on your revenue or on your profit percentage that you could give as funding to the political party. Here is the mechanism how the corporate firm was giving funding to political parties. So as per the electoral bond scheme, the provisions were made that State Bank of India, it would issue electoral bonds. Now the corporate firm which wanted to give donations to the political parties, that corporate firm will go to designated branches of State Bank of India and purchase the electoral bonds. Now this electoral bonds, it were something like DD, demand draft, right? There was no mentioning of the name of the person who has purchased those electoral bonds, for whom it was purchased, it was also not mentioned. What was the mechanism is, the company which wanted to give donations, it was going to the state bank's particular branches. That branch would issue electoral bond of the 1000 rupees or 10,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees or 1 crore rupees. In these 4 steps only the electoral bonds were issued, and that company will purchase those bonds and it will give those bonds to the political parties. That's all. And that political party had to encash those electoral bonds within 15 days. If it will not be encashed in 15 days, then those bonds would go in PM Cares Fund. Can you imagine? PM Cares Fund is something that is out of right to information. So it was again the money that could be used by the government for any purpose, and the purpose also the government was not revealing out to the public. So these were the two major changes. The third change that this particular scheme had brought, it's something very dangerous to the democratic fabric of our nation. We can say it challenges the very sovereign nature of our nation. Recently, when SBI made the data public regarding which company had given how much funding to political party, at that time it was discovered that even the companies which had made loss, they have also given fundings to political parties. Can you imagine what was their rationale behind giving fundings to political parties even after making loss? And to which political parties they might have given the fundings? To the ruling party or to the opposition party? Obviously, to the ruling party. That means It is something that funding is being used for the purpose of business. The funding is used by the companies which are making loss so that they can gain projects from the government and they could recover their losses. So, can you ever imagine a Pakistani company giving fundings to political party in India? No, right? But there are explicit provisions in this electoral bond scheme that a foreign company like that of Pakistan could set up its shell company in India, and that shell company, it could purchase the bonds, electoral bonds issued by SBI, and give those bonds to the political party of their choice, and then that political party would encash those bonds with the SBI in their accounts, bank accounts, and then they can use the funding from indirectly, you can say they can use the funding from a company which is set up initially in Pakistan, and you can imagine what sort of work such political party will do. Thank you so much for watching this session. I hope you have enjoyed this session and gained insightful information from this particular session about electoral bond scheme. The remaining things and the remaining information about this scheme, how the Supreme Court had tackled this issue and struck down this electoral bond scheme, all that will be discussed in the coming session. Till then, stay tuned. Thank you so much.